Welcome! In this series of videos, I'm going to show you how anyone can assemble and frost a layer cake. I'm not an expert, but I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that I use in my home to put together a layer cake. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make what some people think is the most important part of the cake, the frosting. Okay, now we're going to make frosting. We're going to make chocolate frosting in this video. I pre-made a half batch of vanilla so that we have plenty of frosting to fill and cover the cake, but I'm going to show you how the chocolate is made. The vanilla is almost the same process, it's just you don't have chocolate in it, and that's how it's different from the chocolate. So for this recipe, you're going to take a whole stick of softened butter. This has been softening for about 18 hours now. It's nice and soft. You don't want it firm at all, but you also don't want it to be liquid. You want it to just be nice and soft so that it will mix really well with your dry ingredients. Get all the butter off that wrapper. Now, this recipe is not for people on a diet because in addition to a stick of butter, which is a half cup, by the way, we're going to add a half cup of shortening, and I really love these Crisco sticks, and I use the butter flavor Crisco. You can get just the plain white Crisco, but I think the butter flavor adds nice flavor. And what I'm really going for here in my frosting is flavor. When you make the vanilla, it will tell you to use white vanilla for your flavoring, and it will want you to use the white shortening, and that's so that you can get a nice white frosting. I personally don't care what my frosting looks like. I want it to taste good, and I just don't think that white vanilla tastes as good as your standard vanilla. So I like to use the good stuff. You can also get an artificial butter flavoring, but again, I don't think it tastes very good. Not as good as the real stuff anyway. If you are a professional wedding cake baker and you absolutely wanted it to be white, then you probably know more tips and tricks than I do, and the frosting will taste a little better. But for the average home chef, we're not worried about how it looks. Okay, so now I'm just going to cream together these two fats to get them mixed up before I add anything else to them. So I'm going to take my mixer and just okay, they're both nice and soft, so they mixed up pretty well. Next, we are going to add our cocoa and vanilla. I pre-measured my ingredients. It's about 3/4 of a cup of cocoa, and it's a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to add the vanilla first and mix it in with the butter. And that's just so we make sure we get it mixed in nicely before we start adding that cocoa, because the cocoa is really going to change the consistency of this. So there's our teaspoon of vanilla. I like Watkins brand, but you can use anything you want. Any kind of vanilla, that is. Okay, so I'm going to mix this up a little bit, as much as it can. And I don't know how well you can see the color there, but the vanilla does darken it a little bit already. And I'm going to scrape my bowl a little bit. You want to make sure that you're scraping it a lot so that you get everything incorporated in there and don't leave anything stuck too badly to the sides of the bowl. Okay, now I'm going to add the cocoa, and I'm not going to just dump it in all at once. I'm going to add a little bit and mix it up. Okay, and I'm going to scrape it again because you can see the butter is trying to climb the sides of the bowl and that cocoa isn't quite getting mixed up. I also want to make sure I mix this enough so that there aren't any clumps of cocoa, because there would be nothing worse than taking a bite of cake and getting a big mouthful of just bitter cocoa. Because cocoa itself does not have any sugar. We're going to add a lot of sugar here in just a minute after I get this mixed up to my satisfaction. And I should add that we are using the Wilton recipes for buttercream, and there's another version of it that I've done where you add melted unsweetened chocolate to make chocolate frosting. It works just as well, but this is just another version. So now we're going to add our powdered sugar. We have 4 cups of powdered sugar. It says sifted. I'm a lazy home cook. I don't sift my sugar. It's okay. Frosting is very forgiving, so if you have a little too much sugar or not quite enough, it's okay, because the last thing you're going to add is milk, and that is what's going to bring you to the right consistency. So again, I'm just going to add a little bit. I'm not going to dump all 4 cups in there at a time. You also want to be careful, because if you turn your mixer on too high right away, you'll have a cloud of sugar come out of here. Stop once more and scrape the bowl, because we want to make sure all that chocolatey, buttery goodness doesn't just stick to the sides. We want to get it mixed in with the sugar. And as you mix, this should become very dry, which you may think is wrong, but don't worry, you're not done yet. Also, just assume you're going to get really messy, but that's okay. Okay, I'm going to scrape once more. I also want to add that I really wish I had a stand mixer. It would be a lot easier to let the mixer do the work for me, because this is getting a little stiff and a little bit harder to hang on to the mixer. But here in our makeshift library studio, I wasn't going to bring my stand mixer. So you can see we're getting a really nice consistency. It's quite dry. It should be kind of sandy, like wet sand. This is perfect, but you can see it's still not quite all mixed in. I can still see some white of the powdered sugar, so I'm going to mix it a little bit more. Okay, that looks a lot better. So we're going to add the final ingredient, and that's milk. And it says 3 to 4 tablespoons of milk. This is where you have to use your best judgment. And you're going to start by adding the lesser of those. So I'm going to start by adding 3. You may also want to let your milk sit out and warm up a little bit before you add it. And that's so you're not adding really cold milk to butter that you've softened. You don't want the butter to just harden up immediately and then you have lumpy frosting. So we're going to slowly add some milk. Okay, you can see how the change is almost immediate. I'm going to wipe this down, scrape this down once more, and then I am probably going to add at least part of that last tablespoon of milk, because this is still quite stiff, and we want a softer frosting to deal with. You probably don't want to add the whole tablespoon, because you may think, oh, a tablespoon, that's not much, but here it can make a big difference. Okay, that looks like a really good consistency. Not too soft and runny, but nice and fluffy. There's your frosting. Join us in the next video as I put the cake together and show you how to frost it.